Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into something really fascinating. We're going to trace a line from a deeply personal, often completely invisible mental struggle, all the way to the big picture dynamics of our modern workplaces. We'll be looking through the lens of someone diagnosed with Autism Spectrum Disorder and ADHD. And honestly, you're going to see how one tiny, everyday household chore actually holds the secret to understanding massive productivity issues at work. So if you've ever felt totally overwhelmed by something that everyone else thinks is a piece of cake, well, you're absolutely in the right place. Let's get into it. Okay, think about this. Why on earth would packing a simple little online order box leave someone literally gasping for air? I mean, huffing and puffing out of sheer exhaustion. It sounds kind of wild, right? But for the author of our source text, this intense physical reaction to cognitive overload is just an everyday reality. We're going to break down exactly how putting an item into a cardboard box triggers a very real physical cascade of panic and what that actually tells us about neurodivergence. Section 1. The packing panic. So in theory, packing a box is a piece of cake, right? It's just a simple 3-step linear process. Step 1, you measure the item. Step 2, you cut the cardboard. And step 3, you assemble the box. Super predictable. It's basically mechanical. For a neurotypical brain, this barely even registers as cognitive load. You just do it. You're probably listening to music or chatting with a friend while it happens. But as you'll see, the reality for someone with intense ADHD or ASD traits, well, it's a completely different story. Take away that neat little 3-step theory, and the actual reality is just absolute chaos. Step 1 instantly goes off the rails. Extreme anxiety flares up. Like, wait, what if the box is too small? So the brain steps in and forces them to add 5 millimeters or maybe a couple of centimeters, just to be safe. And suddenly, the cuts aren't straight. The workspace is just covered in discarded cardboard scraps, pens, cutters, scissors. To a neurodivergent brain, this isn't just a messy desk. This visual noise triggers intense feelings of disgust and mental chaos. It literally hurts to process. And that leads to this extreme black and white thinking: either destroy the box and start over from scratch, or just throw your hands up and give up entirely. The physical toll of processing all those conflicting signals, heavy panting, a racing heart, and just total exhaustion. Section 2. Developmental disorders and the brain. This brings us to a state called brain memory panic, which is clinically tied to executive dysfunction. It helps to think of the human brain exactly like a computer's RAM. You know when you open way too many heavy apps at once, your computer freezes up, the fan starts spinning like crazy, and it gets super hot? Well, that is exactly what's happening to our author. The cognitive load simply maxes out their mental RAM. The brain just loses the ability to sequence details, prioritize tasks, or filter out all that visual clutter we just talked about. And we see this all the time in folks with ASD and ADHD. Realizing that this is a neurological traffic jam and definitely not a personal failure or just someone being grumpy is absolutely crucial to understanding the sheer exhaustion of that packing task. Section 3. Impact on daily life. Now let's contrast a single-track task with a multi-track task. Even if cutting a single piece of cardboard takes intense focus, it's still just one continuous line of cognitive RAM. But cooking? Cooking is the ultimate villain here. It is a multi-track nightmare. Think about it. You're managing a hot stove, you're chopping vegetables at the exact same time, all while keeping an ear out for the microwave to beep. For a brain that's already prone to memory panic, this kind of environment multiplies the cognitive load exponentially. And really, this is exactly why you hear stories of neurodivergent folks accidentally burning dinner or mixing up the salt and sugar. The working memory literally drops a vital piece of information because it's so busy defending against this massive avalanche of sensory input. So how do you survive this? Well, the author relies on a really hard-won coping mechanism: the overheating fix. When the panting kicks in and the mental screen freezes, the only option is to force a complete, absolute stop. Step away from the scissors, step away from the stove. Take a deep breath and intentionally let the brain cool down. It's basically the human equivalent of forcing a hard reboot. Now, it doesn't cure the underlying condition, obviously, but it does clear the RAM just enough to safely re-engage with the physical world. Section 4. Workplace conflicts. Let's look at how this plays out in the real world, specifically at a youth support station. The author went there to practice re-entering the workforce. The task was incredibly simple: stuff envelopes with flyers. On day 1, they're put in a group of 6, doing this highly divided assembly line thing. One person folds, passes it, the next person opens the envelope, and so on. But here is where the neurodivergence really kicks in. The author's brain immediately spots the inefficiencies and just prioritizes extreme logical optimization way over group harmony. Honestly, the slow social pace of the group is causing them massive stress. So, the author makes a pretty bold move. They ask to work completely alone at a separate table. And the final output? It's just staggering. While the six-person group assembled about 50 envelopes, the author, working totally solo in a state of hyperfocus, single-handedly produced 3 times the output of the entire group. It's a massive, massive difference in productivity. But of course, there's a huge catch here. Fierce momentum leads to burnout syndrome. The staff at the support station actually had to warn the author against this explosive speed. See, from a managerial perspective, sure, the solo output was undeniably incredible, but this relentless blind speed, it's a total double-edged sword. It is exactly the kind of hyperfocus that causes neurodivergent individuals to rapidly burn through their energy reserves, crash hard, and ultimately end up quitting their jobs entirely. It's this really fascinating conflict between raw, explosive productivity and long-term human sustainability. Section 5. Disability Employment Dilemma. This brings us to a quote from a member of an ASD women's group that just perfectly encapsulates this agonizing dilemma. She said, "I'd rather hide my disability and struggle with normal people, mentally and for my pride." Wow, that is such a raw, powerful realization. On the one hand, there's this desperate need for workplace accommodations, right? Like a quiet space, single-track tasks, the freedom to just skip inefficient social pleasantries. But on the other hand, specialized disability environments can sometimes feel a bit patronizing. They can be mentally deflating for someone whose intellectual capacity is exceptionally high, even if their executive function goes up and down. The painful struggle here is desperately wanting to just pass as neurotypical purely for personal pride, even if it means silently suffering through a completely exhausting, unoptimized workday. Section 6. Towards a society utilizing strengths. We really need to fundamentally reframe this entire narrative. Yes, for neurodivergent individuals, the spikes and dips in their abilities are extreme. But what if we stopped looking at the inability to work on an assembly line as a flaw? As the author points out, these so-called flaws can actually be high-octane fuel. I mean, remember the envelope stuffing? That wasn't a disability. That was a highly specialized hyperfocus that literally generated 3 times the standard output. So accommodating this, it shouldn't be viewed as charity. It's a structural imperative. It's management's duty to proactively provide an environment that fits the individual, rather than trying to force that individual into a rigid, uncomfortable little box. And the biggest takeaway? The company benefits immensely. If you properly channel and accommodate this hyperfocus, it directly increases overall productivity and profits. It's a total win-win, but it does require a serious shift in how we design our workflows. Which brings us to our final thought for today's explainer. How can we create environments where neurodivergent people use their hyperfocus as fuel rather than burning out? Take a second and think about your own workplace, your daily routines, the people you work with. What kind of invisible friction could be eliminated just by letting someone work the way their brain is naturally wired to work? I really hope this look into the hidden chaos of cognitive load has sparked your curiosity and maybe given you a brand new lens to view the world through. Keep learning, keep asking questions, and I will see you in the next explainer.